Om Ajnana Timirandasya Na Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Parakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitang Tvang Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are celebrating the anniversary of Lord Krishna's performing the Govardhan puja and the lifting of Govardhan hill. It took place about 5,000 years ago on this planet. In India, briefly, how Govardhan came to India is an interesting story. Formerly, mountains were able to fly, they had wings. We may think this is impossible. How could a mountain have wings? But the Vedas tell us that they were able to fly, and sometimes Indra cut off their wings because it was frightening to have them flying around. So, also we understand that mountains and rivers, they're energies, and they're controlled by persons. Just like we have an automobile. An automobile is an energy of a man or a woman. And it can do many things. But without the direction of the person, it simply sits. Or a factory. Factory is also a big energy. But there's a man in charge of the factory, making sure that all the equipment is working, the the buildings are properly maintained, the people are performing. Similarly, mountains, rivers, planets. The Vedic paradigm is to understand how everything is going on under the direction of ultimately one person, Lord Sri Krishna. How he's controlling everything by his energies. And his energies include other persons who oversee different functions for Krishna. And that includes planets, like modern science thinks that our planets that are rotating in the universe are simply rotating accidentally, chaotically, with no control, with no one in charge of them. But the Vedic literature, Vedic science tells us that no, the planets have deities, have personalities in charge of them. Just like our body. Our body, it works as long as there's a soul in it. As soon as the soul leaves the body, it's just a lump of matter, it doesn't do anything. So anyway, Govardhan was taken by a sage. A sage approached his father and said, I would like to take Govardhan to Kashi. You have such a pious son, great mountain. So the father agreed. But Govardhan, he was a devotee of Krishna. He didn't want to go to Kashi because that's where the impersonalists are. He didn't want to associate with impersonalists. So somehow or other he found the opportunity to stay in Vrindavan. As they were flying over Vrindavan, Govardhan stopped there, and then he wouldn't leave. So that's how he got there. So Krishna appeared on this planet at the request of the superintendent of earth, Bhumi. Bhumi is the goddess of the earth. And she was distraught because there were so many demons on earth. And they were creating disturbances and she couldn't deal with it. She approached Lord Brahma, and Brahma felt that it was too much for him to handle, so they all went to visit Lord Vishnu, who's none different than Lord Krishna. And they told the story, and Vishnu said, yes, I'll be coming, and all of you demigods should take birth in the families of the Yadu dynasty, and you will assist me in this pastime of eliminating the demons and protecting the devotees. So Krishna appeared along with Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram is his first expansion. And he played the part of a little child, of a little cowherd boy. And and he was performing his pastimes in Vrindavan. And his father's name was Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj was the leader of the cowherd men in Vrindavan. And Nanda Maharaj and his brothers and other personalities, leading personalities, were preparing to perform a sacrifice. They did it every year. And Krishna saw them preparing. Although Krishna is God, he knows everything. But as a little child, he was playing the part of a boy. Someone may say, well, why does Krishna do that? If he's God, why doesn't he just come as God? And then everyone would worship him. And there'd be no confusion. There's so much confusion now. Some people think Krishna is just an ordinary person. We have so many conjectures what God should have done, what Krishna should have done, or what he should do now. But he's independent. He does as he likes. They're trying to get that bulb to work. It hasn't worked for years. Best wishes. So, as a little 7-year-old boy, he approached his father and said, "My dear father, what are you doing? What's all this preparation?" And Nanda Maharaj said, "Oh, we're preparing to perform the Indra Yagya, a sacrifice for Indra." And Krishna said, "What are we doing that for?" He said, "Well, Indra supplies rain, and we are cowherd men. We have to maintain our cows and our agricultural fields. So we need water. And water comes from the clouds, and Indra provides the clouds. So we worship him once a year so that he'll continue to supply us with rain." Krishna wasn't satisfied with that answer. Krishna didn't feel that it was necessary to worship Indra. He said, Indra's not able to control. Someone have a Krishna book? You have a Krishna book? You can find this part. So Krishna said, Indra is not independently able to supply the rain. And anyway, how is he supplying rain? What difference does it make whether you worship him or not? He puts rain on the oceans. The oceans don't need water. They don't worship him. He puts rain on the rocks. The rocks don't need water. They don't worship him. So why do we have to worship him? He didn't exactly want to present everything that he was God, because that would interfere with the Leela, the pastime of him acting as the son of Nanda Maharaj. So instead of saying, I'm the one that's controlling everything, and I'm the one that's supplying the clouds, and I'm supplying Indra with his energy. He said it's all going on by karma. You have it? So you can read some of the dialogue between the two.
On hearing this inquiry from Krishna, Maharaj Nanda replied, "My dear boy, this ceremonial performance is more or less traditional. Because rainfall is due to the mercy of King Indra and the clouds are his representatives, and because water is so important for our living, we must show some gratitude to the controller of this rainfall."
Yeah, Krishna wanted to know whether it was Vedic, whether this was a sacrifice that was recommended in the Vedas, or was it just traditional? And he's asking a good question. And he has, by asking that question, Nanda Maharaj has admitted that it's traditional. In other words, it's not Vedic. It was a kind of a traditional ceremony. There's so many traditional things we do that are not authorized, like Christmas trees. Not exactly authorized Christmas trees. Turkeys for Christmas dinner, not exactly authorized. They're traditional. Easter eggs. What does Easter eggs have to do with? These are just traditional things that somehow or other have come in, but they're not really authorized by any scripture. So Nanda Maharaj Krishna didn't want that. Krishna wants things to be done properly. So he's starting off with his father. So then,
"We are arranging, therefore, to pacify King Indra, because he has very kindly sent us clouds to pour down a sufficient quantity of rain for successful agricultural activities."
Now what does Krishna say? What's Krishna's reply?
After hearing this, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the presence of his father and all the elder cowherd men of Vrindavan, spoke in such a way as to make the heavenly king Indra very angry.
He knew that Indra could hear what he's saying. Indra has mystic powers. He's almost as powerful as God. Of course, nobody can be as powerful as God, but Indra is very powerful. Great mystic powers. After all, he's practically chief administrator of this universe. He has to know what's going on. And he's got all kinds of energies, just like even a president of a nation, an advanced nation, or a prime minister. They have all kinds of ways, don't they, to find out information. Through the phones, they have their systems. Through radar, they have systems. Through the internet, they have through their own systems, they have spies, counter spies. They have so many ways. And just imagine what kind of facilities Indra's got. So Indra could hear everything that they were saying. And even if Indra didn't hear it immediately, he would hear it soon. The word would get back to him very soon.
He suggested that they forego the sacrifice.
But he didn't care. He wanted to make Indra upset. Because Indra was involved in this. This was a kind of corruption. And his own father was involved in this kind of corruption. It was in one sense, they were innocent, They were innocent coward men, but they were being engaged by Indra somewhat in a corrupt procedure. Indra was making it seem as though you pay me, you offer respects to me, you'll be okay, you'll get water. You understand? And the simple coward man said, yes, Indra, Dave, yes, whatever you say. Krishna didn't like this. So Krishna said,
his reasons for discouraging the sacrifice performed to please Indra were twofold.
oh, no, first say what Krishna says next.
First, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no need to worship the demigods for any material
No,
advancement.
get to where Krishna speaks next. To his father.
With this purpose in mind, Krishna began to talk as if he were an atheist, supporting the philosophy of karma mimamsa. My dear father, he said, I don't think you need to worship any demigod for the successful performance of your agricultural activities. Every living being is born according to his past karma and lives this life simply taking the result of his present karma.
Yeah, so he spoke like that because otherwise he would have to explain that everything was going on under his direction, which he preferred not to do at that time. So instead he presented a kind of atheistic philosophy of karma mimamsa, that everything happens according to one's karma. And if one performs good karma, he gets good reactions. If one performs bad activities, he gets bad results. So that's how he was explaining that Indra doesn't have anything to do with it. It's all going on by karma. Skip a bit. Keep going with Krishna speaking, yeah.
Everyone is born in different types or species of life according to his past activities, and he gets his next birth according to the activities of this life. Different grades of material happiness and distress, comforts and disadvantages of life are different results of different kinds of activities from either the past or present life.
Okay, now the next reply from Nanda Maharaj. So he goes on explaining this. Indra is not controlling the clouds and the water and all this. It's all going on by karma.
After
Go ahead.
After hearing this statement by Krishna, Nanda Maharaj replied, My dear boy, since you are asking, I shall arrange for a separate sacrifice for the local brahmanas.
Okay, well, we skipped a bit there, but Krishna said, no, I don't think we should do this sacrifice to Indra because he has nothing to do with it. We don't need him. Instead, we should offer a sacrifice to the local brahmanas and Govardhan hill. Nobody expected this, that they had been doing this sacrifice for years, who knows how long, maybe for generations. And they got all their water and everything was going along nicely. Now Krishna, this little boy, is saying, we don't need Indra. Let's take the same paraphernalia that we were going to perform the sacrifice to Indra and worship the Brahmins and Govardhan hill. And Nanda Maharaj is saying, okay, my son, because they loved Krishna so much, they would do whatever he asked. But this was a very amazing request. And it was dangerous. It was very dangerous to displease Indra. That could be devastating. So Nanda Maharaj, he's a good negotiator, good leader. Okay, we'll keep the sacrifice for Indra, and we'll have another sacrifice for Govardhan and the Brahmins. How's that, Krishna? And see what Krishna says.
But Krishna replied, "My dear father, don't delay. The sacrifice you propose for Govardhan and the local Brahmanas will take much time. Better take the arrangement and paraphernalia you have already made for the Indra Yagya and immediately engage them to satisfy Govardhana hill and local Brahmanas."
So Krishna didn't go for that. Half worship of the demigods and half, he likes completely people to worship him, to follow him completely. Krishna is quite demanding. He allows, if someone doesn't want to worship him exclusively, he allows them to do that. But if you really want to please him, then he wants you to give up Sarvadharman Parichaja. Who knows this verse? Raise your hand if you know this verse. Let's say it together. Sarvadharman Parichaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja Ahang Twang Sarvapapebhyo Mokshayishami Ma Shuchaha. And the translation? 1866.
Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear.
So Krishna wants us to give up all other forms of worship other than just surrendering to him. That's natural. Even if you go to the finest violin teacher in the world. So he says, okay, now I'm going to begin instructing you. Now hold the, what do they call it? Hold the bow like this, and hold the violin like this. And you say, and the other person, the student says, I already learned how from my brother. So the teacher says, it's very nice that you learn from your brother, but now it's time to learn what we're going to be teaching you. And then he may, in a humble way, point out that he's very experienced and quite recognized as a violinist. He's won so many awards and championships, and he's the conductor of the orchestra and this and that. And then he says, so therefore I think it's best that you just go along with the way I'm teaching you. So then they continue, and he says, all right, now, hold your fingers like this, push down like this, and look at the music while you're... And he said, yeah, my auntie, she taught me how to do this too. Now at a certain point, the teacher's going to say, I realize that you have some very nice family and friends, and they like to play the violin and everything, but for our purposes here, you're going to need to kind of put those things aside. Isn't that how you would say it, Parameshwar? We need to kind of put those things aside, and you need to follow what I'm teaching you. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, you can continue with the way you were playing violin before, as your brother and your auntie were teaching you. But you've come to me now, and I'm going to prepare you to become a very exalted violinist. But you have to follow my instructions implicitly. Is there anything wrong with that? In any field it's like that. If you go to the medical school, you can't say, oh yeah, I learned something back when I was in Texas. They taught me something about sutures and cutting, and I already know all that. I read about it in the encyclopedia. I know how to do incisions. The teachers are not going to accept it. They want you to be exclusively attentive to what they're saying. And Krishna is the supreme teacher. Therefore, Krishna says, I'm going to give you the supreme science, the ultimate perfect knowledge, but you have to be a clean slate. I can write on. Don't bring in so many things you already know. Okay, so what's next? Who spoke last? Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next statement from Krishna or Nanda?
Maharaj Nanda and other elder members argued that without satisfying the predominating God, one cannot derive any good result simply by material activities.
That was a good reply. They didn't accept Krishna's theory that everything happens automatically. They recognized that Indra is powerful. And they were right. Indra is powerful. He's supplying rain. He's supplying, the clouds are under his direction. If we don't please him, whatever you say about karma, he won't provide us with the rain and we're in trouble. Okay, what's next?
Maharaj Nanda finally relented.
Relented?
Yeah.
He relented. Now he's giving in, okay.
The cowherdman then inquired from Krishna how he wanted the yajna performed.
So finally they surrendered. He convinced them. It wasn't such a short discussion. It was a lot longer than this, but we're summarizing it. There was a lot of back and forth discussion. Just like between Krishna and Arjuna. There was a lot of discussion. Before the Bhagavad Gita took place, before the fight even started, before the first arrow was shot. Arjuna had picked up his bow and was looking over the army with his arrows, and then he put them down. And the discussion went on for quite some time. But finally, after this lengthy discussion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, so now, have you heard my points? Have you heard my instructions? Is your mind now satisfied? What do you do whatever you like now? Tell me what you think. And Arjuna said, yes. Now I've heard your instructions. It makes sense. My doubts are removed. I'm ready to act as you want. Karishe vachanam tava. I'm ready to do what you want. So that's the stage now that Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men, they said, all right, we accept what you say. We're going to give up the Indra Yajna. We're going to use the same paraphernalia for worshipping the Brahmins and the Govardhan hill, which we've never done before. But because you're asking Krishna, we have faith in you.
And Krishna gave the following directions.
Okay, now managers of the temple should listen. Here are the instructions. Krishna is telling him how to perform this sacrifice.
Prepare very nice foods of all descriptions from the grain and ghee collected for the yajna. Prepare rice, dal, then halwa, pakoda, puri, and all kinds of milk preparations, such as sweet rice, rabdi, sweet balls, sandesh, rasgulla, and laddu. And invite the learned brahmanas who can chant the Vedic hymns and offer oblations to the fire. The Brahmanas should be given all kinds of grain in charity. Then decorate all the cows and feed them well. After performing this, give money in charity to the Brahmanas.
So, we don't have cows here, but we can meditate on, what did he say? Decorate the cows?
Yeah, then decorate all the cows and feed them well.
So we can meditate on doing that. Because even when Krishna appeared on this planet, his father Vasudeva was not able to actually give cows in charity as one should do on an auspicious occasion of the birth of a son. But he did it in his mind, and that was accepted. So we can meditate on decorating the cows, and what else?
Feeding them well.
Feeding them well. They especially they like grass, but they like other things too. What are some of the things that cows like to eat?
The apple, the banana peels.
They like nice cooked preparations also. They like prasadam. Yeah, they don't like it hot though. If you give them hot halava, they'll spit it out because they don't eat hot. But if it's not too hot, if it's just mildly warm, they'll eat it. They love sweets. Grains. Go ahead. I saw, when I was in Jagannath Puri one day, outside the temple, just out front of the big Jagannath temple, we were doing some kirtan, and there was a man, and he was massaging a bull. And the bull was just standing there, and the man, the human man, was massaging him, his back and his shoulders and his legs, just like we would take a massage. And he was enjoying it. The bull was very much appreciating. It felt good for him, and the man was. So it's not that cows are inanimate objects. There's a soul inside there, and he likes to be. Even cats and dogs, they like to be petted. They like the affection. So they're also living beings. It's so unfortunate when we send them to slaughterhouses thinking that they have no feelings, they have no rights. You wonder why there's so many problems in the world. One big problem is slaughterhouses. If someone were a devotee and he could run for office and win, one of his major accomplishments would be to stop the slaughterhouses. When we were in Israel, one of our devotees in the congregation was a lawyer, an attorney. And he was a pretty well-established attorney in Tel Aviv, the main city. And it so happened that one of the managers, the elected leaders of the city, had passed away or something, and there was no one to rule or to administrate that particular part of the city, which was a big part of the city. So there was another couple years on the man's term, and they selected this attorney, this devotee attorney, to administrate that part of the city. So he got in there and organized things, and he He made propaganda. He pointed out that this slaughterhouse, there happened to be a slaughterhouse in that section of the town. He said it's causing pollution. He made a whole case, all the things that were wrong with this, and he got it closed by his efforts. He got the slaughterhouse closed. So that's a very good use of one's abilities. If one has those kinds of abilities, you should use them in that way. We should all, in our own way, try to do our part to protect the cows, because we know Krishna is Gopal. He's the protector of the cows.
As far as the lower animals are concerned, such as the dogs and the lower grades of people, such as the Chandalas or the fifth class of men, who are considered untouchable, they also may be given sumptuous prasadam.
So Krishna is recommending sumptuous prasadam on Govardhan Puja, and it should be distributed to the brahmanas and to the non-brahmanas, to the chandalas, to the animals, including the lower species. Prasadam should be distributed. Prasadam means food that's been, all this food that Krishna said should be prepared. It should be offered to Krishna. Food should not just be prepared for our own eating, it should be prepared to offer to Krishna. And then, after Krishna accepts it, then it's distributed as prasadam, as mercy, to the rest of society, and everyone benefits.
After nice grasses have been given to the cows, the sacrifice known as Govardhan Puja may immediately begin.
So then Govardhan Puja means worship of Govardhan Hill, that big mountain that we talked about. And it was quite big in those days. It was bigger than it is now. Because I didn't mention before, but there's another part to the story. When Govardhan stopped in Vrindavan and wouldn't leave, the sage who had arranged for him to come to Kashi with him was angry and said, "All right, you're not going to fulfill my promise, and I curse you that you will shrink every day the height of a sesame seed." So if you do the calculation, which I did, of about 5,000 years ago, it comes out over 10,000 feet high was the mountain. It's a pretty good sized mountain. It's shrunk down now. It's not so big because of that curse. It's a transcendental. Some Vaishnavas, they don't accept that it was Govardhan was affected by the curse. They say Govardhan's lamenting in sorrow that Lord Krishna has left. So there's different ways to look at it. But anyway, it was very high at that time, 10,000 feet high. Go ahead.
This sacrifice will very much satisfy me. Then there is an explanation of what Krishna told. There is explanation of what Krishna told. Shall I read it out?
What to say?
In this statement, Lord Krishna practically described the whole economy of the Vaishya community.
What's the next conversation? Discussion. So now Krishna's given instruction at the big feast and decorate the cows, feed all the people, worship Govardhan Hill. What happens next?
There is a description of how they did it.
Okay, read that.
The honest and simple cowherd men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, accepted Krishna's proposal and executed in detail everything he advised.
That's good. They were honest and simple. They were not thinking, Krishna wants this to be done, but I don't think, Krishna's just a little boy. He's only 7 years old, and Indra's immensely powerful, and we could get in trouble. They didn't think like that. In the beginning they did, and they made their points, but Krishna convinced them. Now that they're convinced, in a sense they're initiated, they surrendered. That's what initiation means. You surrender to Krishna. That, yes, Krishna, now I'm yours. Now I have faith in you. I'm ready to follow your instructions. Karishe vachanam tava. So they carried out all of his instructions to the detail. Next.
They performed Govardhan worship and circumambulation of the hill.
Circumambulation means going around the hill. Which way do we circumambulate? Clockwise. With our right side towards the worshipable object. It's considered a form of great respect to walk around a worshipable person or object. But we have to walk around clockwise. Otherwise it's not auspicious.
Following the inauguration of Govardhan Puja, people in Vrindavan still dress nicely and assemble near Govardhan hill to offer worship and circumambulate the hill.
So we're not in Vrindavan now, here, so we don't have Govardhan, but Govardhan is also making an appearance tonight here. By the mercy of Lord Krishna, to show that actually our temple is Vrindavan, Govardhan has appeared. Just as Govardhan comes from Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world, when Krishna came down, he ordered Govardhan to also come down, and Vrindavan, and so many residents of Goloka to participate in this transcendental pastime. Krishna likes to have the association of Govardhan Hill. So we'll be tonight having circumambulation and worship of Govardhan Hill, just like it's described here in the Bhagavatam.
According to the instruction of Lord Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men called in learned Brahmanas and began to worship Govardhan Hill by chanting Vedic hymns and offering prasadam.
We do that. We chant Vedic hymns. The most important of all the Vedic hymns is the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
The inhabitants of Vrindavan assembled together, decorated their cows and gave them grass. Keeping the cows in front, they began to circumambulate Govardhan Hill. The gopis dressed themselves.
So we can do that today. Tonight we're going to be circumambulating. For those of you who didn't bring your cows, you didn't bring your cows. So meditate on the cows that you should have brought or that you would like to bring. Keep them in front. They should be decorated cows. Krishna wanted them decorated and well fed. If you haven't fed them, then meditate on feeding them before we begin the circumambulation. Because we have to follow Krishna's instructions.
The gopis dressed themselves very luxuriantly and sat in bull-driven carts.
So those of you who are gopis, you can sit in the bull-driven carts. You don't have to walk. And if you don't see any bull-driven carts, meditate on one and sit in that one.
Chanting the glories of Krishna's pastimes. The Brahmanas assembled there to act as priests for Govardhan Puja, offered their blessings to the cowherd men and their wives, the gopis. When everything was complete, Krishna assumed a great transcendental form and declared to the inhabitants of Vrindavan that he was himself Govardhan Hill.
Yes. So Govardhan Hill was there, and little boy Krishna was there, 7 years old. But then Krishna assumed a very big form of Krishna and said, I'm Govardhan Hill. So how could you doubt that? Who else could have assumed such an amazing form? Nobody else had the power to do that. He assumed this beautiful, big form of Krishna and said, I am Govardhan Hill. Continue.
To convince the devotees that Govardhan Hill and Krishna himself are identical.
Yes. This is a significant point. He wanted to convince the devotees that he and Govardhan Hill are identical. And we also learn from the Vedas that other hills in Vrindavan were assumed, the forms of hills, by Brahma and Shiva, Varshana and Nandagram, different mountains. The different demigods took on these different forms as mountains, and Krishna took the form of Govardhan.
Then Krishna began to eat all the food offered there. The identity of Krishna and Govardhan Hill is still honored, and great devotees take rocks from Govardhan Hill and worship them.
Those little rocks are called Govardhan Shila. They take, advanced devotees may take stones from Govardhan Hill and they worship on the altar as Krishna. Just like the Shalagram Shila is incarnation of Vishnu. You find them in the rivers. There's a particular river. And the Shalagram Shila is taken. It has different markings of Lord Vishnu. And Govardhan Shila is incarnation of Lord Krishna. Go ahead.
And worship them exactly as they worship the deity of Krishna in the temples. The followers of the Krishna consciousness movement may therefore collect some rocks or pebbles from Govardhan Hill and worship them at home, because this worship is as good as deity worship. The form of Krishna, who began to eat all the offerings, was separately constituted, and Krishna himself, along with the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, offered obeisances to the deity as well as Govardhan Hill. In offering obeisances to the huge form of Krishna and Govardhan Hill, Krishna declared, "Just see how Govardhan Hill has assumed this huge form and is favoring us by accepting all the offerings." Krishna also declared at that meeting, "One who neglects the worship of Govardhan Puja, as I am personally conducting it, will not be happy." There are many snakes on Govardhan Hill, and the persons neglecting the prescribed duty of Govardhan Puja will be bitten by these snakes and killed.
So, Govardhan Puja is a happy celebration because we're fulfilling Krishna's instructions. We're pleasing Krishna. Krishna wants this. And also we're avoiding being bitten by the snakes. So there's two nice things. We get the positive and we avoid the negative. That's what Krishna consciousness means. It's happy life. You get to dance and sing and eat nice food and so many nice things. And also we avoid the sufferings of material existence at the same time. So, whichever way you like to look at it, if you like to avoid the unpleasant things, then take to Krishna consciousness. And if you like the pleasant things, then you can take to Krishna consciousness.
In order to assure the good fortune of the cows and themselves, all people of Vrindavan near Govardhana must worship the hill as prescribed by me.
So we're this Krishna consciousness movement, this is one of our main festivals of the year. And so we should all perform this every year as grand as we can. Tonight we may only have a moderate-sized Govardhan hill, but it can be bigger and we can have more people in the future. Why should we only be fortunate? Krishna invited everyone. The chandalas were invited, the animals, the cows, the dogs. So let's enjoy this festival tonight and then think and plan how we can make it bigger in the future for more people. Kansas City, there's 1.75 million people. Shouldn't they get the opportunity to participate in Govardhan Puja? I think that would be nice. That's our duty. It's nice that they like to worship the chiefs, but worshiping Govardhan Hill will be even more auspicious.
Thus performing the Govardhan Puja sacrifice, all the inhabitants of Vrindavan followed the instructions of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and afterwards they returned to their respective homes.
Shri Govardhan Puja ki jai. Giri Govardhan ki jai. Giri Varadhari ki jai. So we didn't get into the next part. So I'll try to summarize it quickly. Well, the coward men were right. Indra became furious. When Indra was notified, when he found out that the coward men of Vrindavan, they didn't perform the sacrifice to you, Indra. Instead, they worshiped Govardhan Hill and the Brahmanas. They did that? Yes, why did they do that? He asked. He said, well, there's this little boy named Krishna there, and he gave instructions. So Indra became so angry that he ordered the Samvartaka clouds. The Samvartaka clouds are in charge of inundation of the universe at the end of Brahma's lifetime. Samvartaka clouds come and they pour down so much rain that the universe fills up with water. Right now it's only half filled with water. 2 billion miles deep, Garbhodak Ocean. But when the Samvartaka clouds come, the water goes up to the top. 2 billion miles worth of cloud water. So the Samvartaka clouds are formidable. So he said, all right, I have a mission for you. Should be easy for you. Go to Vrindavan, inundate the whole place, wipe out Vrindavan. Just like Paradise, California got wiped out yesterday with a fire. So Indra said, go down to Vrindavan, wipe out that village with water, inundate the whole place. So they went, and Indra went with them, because they were a little afraid. They weren't sure. Maybe this Krishna was powerful. And the water came down, and it didn't just come down in water. It came down in big chunks of ice and water, and everyone was, it was devastating. And the cows were crying, and the cowherd men were crying, the cowherd women were crying. All they could think of was, Krishna, 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 save us. So Krishna took his position, and he said, don't worry. And with his left hand, he picked up the whole Govardhan hill and lifted it above his head like an umbrella, and he told all the residents of Vrindavan, just stand under the hill, everything will be all right. Don't worry about anything. So they did it. They got under that hill, the cows, cowherd men, everyone. And he was standing there holding the hill like an umbrella. And the water and the ice was coming down, and everything was completely inundated with water except those who were under the hill. So Indra didn't care. He kept showering down the torrents of rain and ice for 7 days and 7 nights, and Krishna just stood there. And no one felt hungry. By Krishna's inconceivable potency, they were all pacified, blissful. Everything was taken care of by his arrangement. And you can imagine how much appreciation they had for Krishna. And for him it was not difficult, because he's the most powerful. Viryasya yashasya shriya. He's the most strength. He has the most strength. After 7 days and 7 nights, finally Indra realized that there was nothing he could do to harm the residents of Vrindavan. This Krishna must be the real thing. He was doubtful, he thought it was just an imitator, but then he found out this is the real thing. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he came and he bowed down to Krishna with his elephant, Airavata, and he brought also Surabhi cow from the spiritual world, and they bathed Krishna with Ganges water from Airavata's trunks, and the Surabhi cow from her udders, she bathed Krishna with the milk. So this is Abhishek ceremony. I don't know if we're having Abhishek today or not. We're not? No, Abhishek. Okay. So this is the great Girivardhari. Krishna lifted the hill and he became famous for doing that, to protect his devotees. Krishna likes to protect his devotees. And he showed many things from this pastime, that we don't have to depend on anyone else but Krishna. That if we surrender to Krishna, he'll take care of us. And he can perform all amazing activities, nothing he can't do. And it's very enjoyable to follow Krishna's instructions. You get so much pleasure, and by pleasing Krishna we become satisfied. Okay? So we're going to have Arti ceremony now, and after you'll explain what happens? Okay.
Zolnes Danavir Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
Giri Govardhan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Coincidentally, this happens to be the anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day in 1977, so it's a triply auspicious day. So let us all enjoy chanting with great enthusiasm.